Okay, good evening, Ma. You are welcome. This is CIT, which is computer. This is CIT 102. CIT 102. And the course is about, excuse me, let's try to, okay, sorry for that short break. So, this is CIT 102, computer software application skills. The course is about software application skills, some software in the computer that you will need to interact with as a teacher, helpful softwares that you will work with time to time. That is what the course is all about. Computer software application skills. And to open the floor, we'll start with Module 1, Unit 1, which is brief description of a computer system. Before you start going into the softwares that we have and their application skills, it's very important you know about the computer itself, the computer system. What is a computer system? How does it work? Where is it found? What are the requirements? So we'll talk about brief description of a computer system. We'll talk about a short history of computing, then types of computers that we have, and of course the component, or sorry, the computer system unit. The computer system unit. That is what we'll be talking about, the main board and the drives. That is in your CPU when we get there. The main board and the drives. Then we'll talk about the central processing, the function of it, the ALU, the part of it that is meant for calculation. Then the control unit. We'll talk about the computer memory unit, likewise, RAM and ROM, and then the secondary memory. It's going to be an interesting section. It's an interesting course on its own, so we will dwell much on getting the concept right, because this is not just about reading to pass the exam. I believe you are here by now. If you are here, well, probably you will watch the recording. So, having just read through the course guide, you are now to go through the first unit of the course, which is very fundamental to the understanding of how a computer works. Moreover, this unit is a foundation unit to the general knowledge of various applications of the computer system, where this unit simply takes you through of computers, various types of computers, and some basic elements of the computer system, some of which are hidden away from your view. Now, let us this unit. This unit, I should be able to explain the brief history of evolution of computers, how computers evolved over time. Then I should be able to categorize computers according to their designs. I should be able to identify the basic component of a computer system unit, and then I should be able to state the functions of the computer central processing unit, which is like the brain of the computer. I should be able to state the function of the computer central processing unit, popularly known or called CPU, popularly known as or called CPU. Mostly, some people call it the brain of the computer. But when we get there, you see why it qualifies to be the brain of the computer. That is when most of the works or activities the computer is undergoing are being done. Now we'll talk about a short history of computers. That is where we are starting from. That's our major concern today. A short history of computers. Mathematician has been credited as the first in the evolution of today's computer system. However, the whole idea of development of the computing machinery has been dated by many of the time by many to the time of abacus. Do you remember the history of abacus? It is before Christ and was primarily used as a calculating device to aid memory. So it was abacus that was used as a calculating device to aid memory, to help improve. Yes, there is this kind of, should I say, general opinion or belief that Charles Babbage was credited with the first, computer, especially evolution of computer. But if you look at it critically, the first appearance of things that look like computer or things that qualify to be called computer dates back to 3000 before Christ when they invented abacus then. And abacus was a very uh, powerful machine during its time. Now, the first computing machinery built in 1812 by Babbage was a model called the difference engine. The first machine that was- which was built in 1812, Babbage, the man Charles Babbage, was a model called the difference engine to compute logarithm tables and print the results. He later conceived of building a better device capable of performing any calculation, only logarithm. The first attempt Charles Babbage made in producing an engine was the difference engine, basically used for calculating logarithm or solving logarithm tables and also printing out the result. But he decided about how many years later, about I think 21 years later, after he came up with that difference engine, he must have been working all along the year to a big invention. He began to think, why don't we look for another machine that will be able to do more than just solving logic and printing results? Can't we have something that will, deal with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and so on, and even division? As a result of that is intuition. He was able to come up with another engine, which we call the analytical engine. So that is intuitive mind of, can't we have something better, something that can do more than just logarithm? That that led him to coming up with analytical engine, which consisted of most features in our today's computer. That analytical engine consists of several things that you can find in this modern day, in this computer we are using these days. So, for example, Babbage analytical engine could store intermediate results in a memory unit. Though Babbage died before the engine was finally constructed in 1871 by his son, he still has the honor of being called the father of computers till today. So, we will say that Charles Babbage has been accredited with the title father of computers. The father of computers is referred to, is when we talk about fathers of computer, we're talking about Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage is the man with that title, in case you find that in the exam. It should interest you to know that the first computer program was developed by Babbage Analytical Engine by Ada Augusta Byron, and she is today remembered as the first computer. Ada Augusta Byron is the first. Babbage is the father of Augusta Byron is the first computer programmer, and the person is a female. Now, the whole history of computers is very loaded. That cannot be covered by you in this unit. Computers, yes. While Babbage machines were mechanical, in another computer called Mark I was one of the first world electrical computers. Charles Babbage was mechanical. It was not using electricity to run, probably battery or whatever, cells. But the first electrical machine, or the first computer that uses, or that is based on electricity, that uses electricity as means of operation, as fuel for operation, is called Mark I. Then there was ENIAC. ENIAC stands for Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator. Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator. That is the one we call ENIAC. And in ENIAC, we say that ENIAC is the first electronic computer built in 1945. So Mark I is the first electrical computer. ENIAC is the first electronic computer built in 1945. ENIAC came into picture in 1945. It was the first electronic computer. Then the first computer to perform arithmetic and logical operations using a stored program within it was called EDSAC, Electronic Delay Storage Automatic Computer. Computer that uses stored programs to perform logical operations and even arithmetic operation, EDSAC. And then we have this common one too, which we call EDVAC. EDVAC is Electronic Discrete Automatic Computer. It was after the development of EDSAC that they came with the EDVAC. So far, so good. What we're talking about is accredited with the father of computer. And then we have the first, who was a female then, Ada Augusta Byron, was the first computer programmer. Well, right before Charles Babbage, we had Abacus, which was a form of computer then. But it was basically used for just calculation of logarithm books, or sorry, tables, and then to print the result. But Charles Babbage started his own invention and came up with some nice computers, like the analytical engine that he came up with. But all his own inventions were all mechanical. They don't depend on electricity. So the first appearance of electrical computers we have was the Mark I during the first. So that was the Mark I, the first electrical computer. But after that, they developed another one, which is ENIAC. ENIAC now stands as the first electronic computer, which is EDSAC. EDSAC is mainly, not mainly, but it performs arithmetic and logical operations using already stored program in computer. And after that, few months release of EDSAC, they came up with EDVAC. EDVAC, which stands for Electronic Discrete Auto, very important. and that ENIAC, which is the first electronic computer, came into space or into being in 1945. You will now round up this very brief history of computers by knowing that the most early generation computers were developed for scientific and military purposes. This statement is very important. What was motivating them during that time where they just started with ENIAC, EDVAC, and the rest of them? The main motivation they were having then was how to advance in science and how to get better in the military. So the science and the military were the purposes for the development of most of the computers in those days. So the first commercial computer, the one that is not meant for only science and military, the one that can now work like a business computer, was the UNIVAC, Universal Automatic Computer. The UNIVAC 1 was the first commercial computer. The first electrical computer, which we've talked about, was the Mark 1, like a kind of uh, what do we call it now? A kind of summary now for this unit, this part. Mark 1 was the first electrical computer. ENIAC was the first electronic computer. Then the first computer to perform arithmetic operation and logical operation using stored program. The program has already been stored in it, is the EDSAC, after which they produce EDVAC. Then you need to know that all those ones, all those computers we mentioned before now, they were all concerned with science and like improvement in science and the use in the military. So they were serving the purpose for advancement in science and also like for automation of things in science and also in the military. But the first computer that came out usable for business operation for commercial purposes is the ENIVAC. The ENIVAC is that is ENIVAC 1, Universal Automatic Computer. Universal Automatic Computer. That is the one that came out as the first commercial computer. Now, finally, the historical development of the computer can be divided into four phases or generations. While we have more than four generations actually. Okay, 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 okay. Oh, sorry. I dropped the link for you and you did not oh. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I need to stop that meeting.